Hello and welcome to this presentation of how to pass the Level 2 CFA exam. My name is BJ Tolia. I am the Vice President of CFA Education and Level 2 Professor at Kaplan Schweser. All right, so first of all, congratulations. I'm assuming you passed your Level 1. Otherwise, why are you here? Anyways, let's look at what we're going to talk about. What is the outline of our presentation? The first thing we're going to talk about is very briefly, what is the Level 2 curriculum? Then we'll talk about what the format of the exam is at Level 2. We'll also look at the historical pass rates, that's the bad news. And then we'll talk about what is the difference between Levels 1 and 2, so you are aware as to what you are dealing with. We'll also talk about learning science and myths that science has come up with. Science has said these are things that really don't work and these are the things that work. Then we'll get to the bottom of it, which is simply to get into how to efficiently prepare for this specific exam, for the Level 2 exam. We are also going to obviously talk about how we can help you in your preparation process. And then we'll summarize the presentation in the last point, in which is the steps in the preparation process. All right, let's look at the curriculum itself. Level 2 curriculum has 17 study sessions. What you will see is the study sessions for the topic areas that have more study sessions generally have more weight on the exam. And speaking of weight, let's look at the exam weight at Level 2. What you will see is the exam weight at Level 2 is variable. This is one of the differences between Levels 1 and 2. We will see that in just a little bit. Now, what you will also see when you look at the exam weighting, the topic weightings here, what you will see is that the big weights in this at Level 2 is equity evaluation and financial reporting and analysis. So those are the two big dogs at Level 2. Make sure you are on top of, make sure you're really good at those two areas. Without that, it becomes very, very, very difficult, if not impossible, to pass this exam. Not only that, you also should be recognizing that Level 2 is the valuation level in the curriculum. Remember, Level 1 was the investment tools level. That's where you introduce two different tools of investments. Level 2 is where we get into valuation. So therefore, you will see a lot of valuation perspective. That's why you see a lot of asset classes being covered at Level 2. So keeping that in mind, let's look at the question format at Level 2. At Level 2, the exam is going to be organized in the form of item sets. Each item set is simply a set of 6 related questions, and these 6 related questions are preceded by a short story, a vignette, or an essay. So this short story or vignette is about a page and a half that gives you information that you need to answer the 6 questions that follow. Now, each item set is always going to be 6 questions. And each item set is going to be from a different topic area. Usually, they are standalone topic areas. So one item set from ethics, and it's all ethics in that entire item set, for example. Each item set also corresponds to 5% of the exam weight. There are going to be 10 item sets in the morning session of the exam and 10 item set in the afternoon session of the exam. Now, the item set, you need to make sure you are very familiar with the item set format of the exam right off the bat, so that you are understanding of your difference in approach to preparing for this exam. Now, the bad news is that the pass rates for Level 2 is about mid-40s. Okay, so the pass rate seems to be not that bad, especially when you are looking at the pass rates at Level 1. However, keep in mind, this is for a pre-screened pool of candidates. These are all the candidates that have passed Level 1. Nobody is allowed to sit for Level 2 without having first cleared Level 1, without having passed the mustard, if you will. So from a pre-screened pool of candidates, the pass rates are still not that good. So I'm not trying to discourage you, but I want you to be mentally prepared to see the challenge that you are facing. Now let's look at the 5 differences that Level 2 has as compared to Level 1. We'll kind of go down the list. So let's look at the difference number 5. The difference is that the topic study session weightings are variable. We already saw that when we look at the exam weights. So for example, at level 1, you had a fixed allocation of weight, exact amount weight that is specified for quantitative method. Not so at level 2. At level 2, quantitative methods can be 1 item set or 2 item sets. So that gives you some mystery, if you will, in what you can face on the actual exam. You can't just start gaming the topic areas. The fourth difference is the item set format. So questions are no longer individual questions, rather than they are all based on a single vignette. That allows the exam writer to give you a lot of red herring, a lot of extraneous information, so that you are able, they can look at your analytical skill so that you are able to parse through irrelevant information or not. The third difference is more integration of different topics. So for example, again, that is related to your item set format. You have a question from equity valuation, for example, and you could have within that same item set, you could have some question that deals with dividend discount model, some question that deals with price multiples, or you can even have some question that deals with the cost of capital. So more integration of different topics makes it a little different, nuanced, and usually more challenging for candidates. The second difference is higher expectation of analytical skills. So here you are not going to be successful if you are relying simply on memorization, if you're relying simply on plug and chug. You are seldom going to see questions that are going to be simple plug and chug at level 2. You see some, but not many. The expectation here is, are you really understanding what you're doing? The expectation is you are going to be an analyst. Are you demonstrating that by your ability to answer questions that are written appropriately? And then the last difference, the number one difference between level 1 is way more material. We say that if level 1 is mile wide and mile deep, level 2 is 20 miles wide and 20 miles deep. So way too much material. Not only you have more material in terms of quantity of readings, quantity of words that you need to look through, but on top of it, the depth of understanding that is expected of a level 2 candidate is even more. So that is the challenge, that is the requirement, and therefore you need to take this exam seriously. You need to give it the respect it deserves. You need to allocate appropriate amount of time for it. Now, how do you efficiently prepare for this exam? Given the fact it's challenging, there are specific things you can do to make your task manageable, doable. We need to have a very rigorous, well-planned study effort. So 300 hours plus is probably the minimum, okay? So it again varies. I have a question mark there specifically. Why? Because it varies from person to person based on their background. I don't see many people with non-finance background being able to get away with 300 hours or less of work. So if you have if your background does not give you the luxury of knowing a lot of the topics that are covered in the level 2 curriculum, you need to have a very disciplined approach and requires time to master the material that is covered in level 2. Starting late, but not as well as not devoting the time, is a recipe for failure. I'm sure your competition would love for you to do that. The other candidates in the candidate pool would love for you to do that. Keep in mind, you don't want to fail this exam, which is only once a year. Focus on the LOS. This is what the CFA Institute expects you to do. This is what they are expecting you to be accountable for. So make sure that your understanding of the material is consistent with the LOS that underlies the material. So when it comes to preparing for the exam, when it comes to learning and test taking, what really works and what doesn't? Well, let's look at things that don't work. Underlining and highlighting. Generally, scientists that study learning have realized that this process of underlining and highlighting may be seeming to help us, but it really doesn't do a whole lot. It's a low utility exercise. It really doesn't help a whole lot. Is memory a muscle? Can rote learning help you remember things? No. Sorry, no way. And does it help to have a specific study space so you kind of have a regimen in place, you have a very precise location and time that you are studying, well, it's not necessarily very user-friendly or not very good in retention. So studying in multiple conditions results in better scores or better retention recall of the underlying material. It also reduces monotony, so you may want to have multiple studying conditions and multiple studying locations. So what are the things that, more techniques that have limited or no evidence of effectiveness in learning? So rereading the underlying material. Well, if you didn't understand it first time, by reading it second time is not going to help. It's more short-term memorization, long-term forgetting. Use of imagery for text-based learning or use of keywords mnemonics. All of these are again variations of memorization, really not very effective in learning. It may be effective in memorization, but not very effective in learning. Again, remember, level 2, you're looking for analytical skills. You're looking to learn, understand the material. So what does work? Well, elaborative interrogation. Questions like, why does this make sense? You're doing evaluation of a stock using a specific model. Well, you ask yourself, why does this make sense? If you're able to answer those kind of questions, it really increases the staying power of the underlying material that you're learning. Self-explanation. So you're going through and teaching yourself. Think about you being the teacher and teaching yourself the underlying logic behind the theory that you're learning. That has, again, very good staying power. Other things you can do is interleaved learning. So rather than practice, large groups at a time, break it up into smaller so that your marginal disutility of additional question is not so severe that you don't really learn much from that. So point is, rather than having large blocks of problems, do interleaved learning, meaning take frequent breaks. So again, if you're doing it over a long period of time, which I would highly recommend, then your days are going to be broken up by life in general. You are going to be studying some portion of the day, working some portion of the day, doing some other exercising some portion of the day, and so forth. So that is interleaved learning. Distributed practice, spreading learning over time. Very, very, very effective method. So rather than crunching it towards the last 3 weeks of the exam, that is not very effective. Cramming has very short-term benefits. So yeah, cramming in the last 3 days of the exam may be okay. That is great for memorizing your formula sheet. That is great for going over your ethics material, but that's not long-term solution to preparing for the exam. Now, the test effect is a key. Very, very important, very powerful. And taking quizzes, it aids learning very, very, very much. Very effective. So taking quizzes, doing prompts is extremely effective. What we say, putting pencil to paper. In fact, you learn more by making mistake than by getting your answers correct. When you make a mistake, your brain, for whatever reason, flares up and recognizes that this is the kind of mistake that can be made, and therefore kind of trains you to ensure that you don't repeat that mistake. So quizzing is very powerful. In fact, when we talk about the Q bank, it is specifically designed for giving you this test effect, giving you this staying power of the underlying learning. What are the things you can do? How can we help with your preparation process? Preparing with Schweser. We have a product called Study Calendar included with most of our products. So that is an interactive online product that you can use to spread your study out. Remember, we said interleaved learning is very, very effective. So you plan your studies and you stay on your plan. That having a good calendar in place ensures that you don't rely on cramming, which is not very useful. It also keeps you on schedule, on task. Also, our flagship product, which is the Schweser Notes, I make sure when I write that product that it satisfies a specific requirement. The requirement is it is comprehensive. It covers every single LOS. In fact, it is organized by LOS. So it is comprehensive. It needs to be clear, not obtuse. you take the words that may be not very easily understandable and put it in user-friendly language. So very clear, and then finally the concise, saving time. So we realize that your time is valuable to you. You can easily spend lots of hours preparing for this exam. So we want to not waste any of your time that we can save, and therefore the material is a lot more concise than the underlying curriculum. There are 5 volumes in the Schweser notes, volumes 1 through 5. They are organized again, as I said, by LOS. You have the list of LOS as well as each LOS being covered within the readings themselves. All LOS are covered and index as well as there are examples within each LOS. Also, at the end of each chapter, each reading, there are end of reading questions which kind of has the quizzing effect that we talked about. Also, at the end of each topic area, so for example, at the end of ethics, at the end of quant, at the end of econ, we have self-test questions. These self-tests are in item set format to get you familiar with the item set way, and you get more interrelated material, so all of ethics being tested all at once to see whether you really understood the material or not, kind of gauge for yourself what your level of understanding is. At the end of each book, there is a list of formulas that are covered within that book. We also have the quick sheet, which has a list of formulas as well. Now, the Schweser Pro Q Bank, this is an online Q Bank, and this really focuses on the quiz effect. Remember, the quiz effect is very powerful learning technique. It increases the staying power, increases the retention. So you do a chapter, you do a specific area of a curriculum, and then go to the Q Bank and do the questions on it to ensure that there is a staying power to what you have learned. It is organized by LOS as well. In addition to the Schweser notes, we have the practice exams. There are 2 volumes for practice exams, 1 and 2. Each volume has 3 full-length exams, so 3 a.m. and 3 p.m. portion of the exam. Remember, these are all item sets, so each exam is 10 vignettes. Each section is 10 vignettes, so 20 vignettes or 20 item set for each exam. So you have 3 exam in volume 1, 3 exam in volume 2. And each exam, we allow you to put online performance tracker. So performance tracker gives you an idea as to where you stand relative to your peers. So you can benchmark yourself relative to everybody else and get a good idea as to what are the things you need to work on before the D-Day. So what we have done is we have created some packages based on the popularity of different products that people want. So our base model, our very, very basic package is the Essential Self-Study package. As the name suggests, it is self-study. There is no instructional component, no tutorial component to this package. This package includes our notes as well as the Q Bank. It also includes practice exam volumes 1 and 2, and there is office hours which are pre-assigned, predetermined, and assigned to the calendar. Now, so that is for self-study, those who don't need instructional support. For those of you who need instructional support, those of you who would like to have tutorial support, then we have live classroom, in-person classroom in Boston, Chicago, New York, Toronto, Washington, D.C., and many, many more places. We also have our sister concerns all over the world that offer live instruction. We also have online class. There are 3 alternatives for you. 4 alternatives now. There is an early start component which starts sometime in October. There is an Eastern time. Again, this is Eastern as in New York time. That starts sometime in January. The London time class also starts in January, and then the Asia time class. So all of these are live online classes that you can take from the comfort of your home or office or wherever you like to study. All of these live classroom as well as live online include on-demand videos. So what you have created is a comprehensive set of videos which complement our live instruction. So in the live instruction, we have limited time. We really get down and dirty into more difficult areas of the curriculum, and more list-like definitional portions of the curriculum, we leave it on the on-demand, so we have comprehensive coverage of the underlying material. The premium instruction package combines the essential package with some instructional component. So in this case, we start with the essential package and then we add either the online or the in-person weekly class. Live online or live weekly classes. Again, depends on where you live. You may not have access to the live weekly class, then you can choose the online class. It has Ask Your Instructor, which is simply an email support that you can send in for clarification on anything in the curriculum. And it includes, again, all the instruction include on-demand videos as well as the candidate resource library. The Premium Plus package starts with the Premium package, which has all the things in the Premium package. On top of it, we include the secret sauce. This is a late season truncated review, so it's kind of like a concise of all the Schweser notes and really focusing on must-know topics for the exam. So it includes that product, the secret sauce, and it also includes a review option, late season review option, either a 3-day or a 5-day or a 7-day workshop. So the baseline Premium Plus includes a 3-day, and that 3-day is offered in multiple cities, so it is live in multiple cities, or you can take online as well. And you have an option to upgrade if you want a 5-day or 7-day Windsor week package. The late season review that we just talked about, 5-day, 3-day, or 7-day at Windsor, that component, again, as I said, includes the secret sauce, and then the review workshops, which is several locations, 3 days, either online or in person. And then the 5-day review occurs in New York as well as Dallas-Fort Worth area. And then we have the 7-day that occurs in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. Apart from that, we have a late season product known as the Schweser Mock. We offer this in conjunction with partnership with many societies, 100 or more societies around the world who administer our mock. For those of you who don't have access to that in-person mock, you can do that online as well. And the nice thing about the mock exam is, again, you can benchmark yourself against your peers, but also you have a tutorial, an online interactive tutorial, videos that go over every single question in that mock. So to summarize, what are the steps in the preparation process? What are the steps in a successful preparation process, if you will? Number 1, start early. Don't delay. It is really a tough exam. The sooner you start, the more thankful you will be come April, May, when the stress level starts ratcheting up. Step 2, read Schweser notes so as to get a clear and concise understanding of the underlying material. Step 3 is supplement that Schweser notes with videos. So when you're reading it, you can use a different media, different modus operandi, different mechanics to again understand the material, and it gives you variety and therefore increases the staying power as we talked about earlier. Step 4, do practice, put pencil to paper, do end of reading chapters, in the official curriculum books. This will give you an idea as to what are the things you really understood. These are the things I need to revisit, for example. Do questions from the Q bank. So you do one reading, do some questions from the end of the reading in Schweser notes as well as curriculum, and you do 5 readings, and that is the end of the study session. Now you go to the Q bank and see whether you really remember those readings or not. Do the next reading in the study session and so forth. Remember, the Q bank is not a substitute for the practice exam. The questions in the Q bank are not necessarily all in item set. There are some item set questions, but a lot of them are standalone because the purpose of the Q bank is primarily to help you retain what you are learning. Do the self-test at each of the topic area, meaning if you're done with equity, make sure you go to the self-test for equity to get an idea as to what your retention is. Next step is attend a late season review workshop. In a 3-day or a 5-day or workshop, what do you do? And a 7-day more so, but a 3-day or a 5-day workshop, what you do is you learn the material one more time in a very broad overview. So you use mind maps that you have learned this material, but you still have some holes in your learning. You've forgotten some of those things. You have gaps. So we give you a broad overview so as to refresh your memory, and then we work actual item sets. to give you, a hands-on practice before the exam itself. So you not only are able to do some item sets, but also you are given expert tips on what are the best ways to approach that item set, so that you are ready for it when you see it on the exam. Take the practice exam. In our practice exam volume 1 and 2. More you do, the better it is, because each practice exam covers a set of LOSs, and what we are trying to do is to, over the 6 practice exam, we cover almost all the LOS. And it is going to be more geared towards more heavily tested areas, but nonetheless, you get a comprehensive understanding of where your gaps in learning are. Plus, you get to benchmark yourself to others, so you know whether you are in good shape or not. And if you're not, what can you do before the actual exam? So use the performance tracker to identify your weak areas to address. Take the live Schweser mock exam. Again, that gives you, if you are able to actually go to a physical location and take it, that will experience some exam-like condition. It's never going to be the same stress level as the actual exam, but it gives you a dry run of what you can kind of expect come exam day. And for those questions that you did not do correctly, even for the questions you did correctly, use the tutorial. That'll be a nice change of pace anyways, and you can get good pointers there as well. The last thing is, remember, ethics is special. It is the material that the CFA Institute loves to put little extra weight on, but still reread ethics one more time on the Friday prior to the exam. So what do CFA charter holders say? Now, I realize my opinion is going to be very biased, right? However, what I want you to do is to ask your peers, somebody who has actually passed the level 2 exam, not somebody who has failed. So ask people that have actually passed the level 2 exam what they did. I'm pretty sure you will see overwhelmingly people describing you Schweser. You'll be glad you did. So, and with that level of confidence, I can recommend Schweser to you. And I wish you good luck, regardless of whether you go with us or not. Wish you good luck, and stay tough. It is going to be a long road. Good luck.